When's the last time that you actually checked on customer satisfaction? So often what's happening is we're in the process of creating our product or our service, and that takes a lot of time to get the offer right, all the things that are involved to make sure we're connecting with the prospects and all of that. Then, we have to sell things. So that there's a lot of energy goes into selling things and finally getting the opportunity to be able to actually sell someone something. Then we have to deliver it and actually execute on what we promise, what our obligation is to people. And then quite often we never even think about customer satisfaction. I mean, we're sort of reading it on a gut level on what we think is really how satisfied they are. But, frankly, we ought to check on that once in a while. I don't know if you're familiar with what's called Net Promoter Score, but it's a pretty easy way to determine whether or not your customers, number one, are satisfied with what you're doing with them, and then number two, whether they will actually promote you or refer you to others. And a Net Promoter Score is something that is easy to execute, but it gives you a really good read. In fact, some consider it sort of the gold standard of customer satisfaction. If you're not familiar with it, I encourage you to look it up and get familiar. It's pretty easy to put one together, and it doesn't take long for customers to answer it, but it gives you a really good indication of how happy are they, how satisfied are they, and then also whether or not they would actually refer you. Now you might say, well, what's the big deal here? I mean, I kind of have a feel for what people like and what they might, whether or not they're satisfied. Well, yeah, you might, but often what happens, I find, is not everyone is really honest with you. Now, if they're really ticked off, they're really mad, they'll launch into you and say some things and all that. I get that. But a lot of times it's the people that are sort of silent that you have to worry about most, because they're not really happy, but they're not necessarily going to tell you they're not happy. And you don't really have a means, most people don't, of trying to determine whether or not they're satisfied. So what happens is they're not happy, they're not going to recommend you, and then they're going to kind of just quietly disappear. Now, friend, you don't want that to happen, because what will happen is you'll get some turnover churn. They're not coming back buying additional services or products. They're not recommending you, and it's kind of a one-off. You do some business with them, they move on. You find someone else, you do some business with them, and they move on. But you're not getting that repeat traffic, and you're not getting those referrals. Well, sometimes all you have to do is ask. Now, most of the time, if you ask directly, they're probably not going to tell you. But if you ask with like an NPS score, Net Promoter Score, you get a really good read. They will be honest in that Net Promoter Score, and if you execute on those and then actually digest the information that you get back, what it can do is it can tell you a lot about your company. It can tell you a lot of maybe even what you need to improve. So I strongly encourage you as you look at your business, don't neglect customer satisfaction. Customer satisfaction is one of the core metrics for people who want to buy your business. They want to know, how satisfied are your customers? Do they come back and purchase additional products or services? Do they recommend you? And if you can have an objective means by which you measure customer satisfaction, and you can also share that with any prospect who wants to consider buying your business, you'll be way ahead of where most people are. We work hard at what we do, and it's so important to know that people really like what we do. They're happy about what we do. I know one of the things that I always try to do is if possible, I try to over-deliver, under-promise and over-deliver. And what I mean by that is we have a set agreement where I have some deliverables I've obligated myself to, but I don't want to just do the bare minimum. I want to actually exceed that minimum. I want to go way beyond what I told them I would do, to the point where they really kind of begin to rave and say, you know what? He not only did what he said he would do, he did way more than what he said he would do. And this has been such a satisfactory relationship and a beneficial relationship. I really like this guy, and I want to do more business with him, and I want to recommend him to my friends. Now, think about it for a moment in your company. How often does that happen? How often do people come back and buy additional services or additional products? How often do they refer you out to their friends, their family, others that they have connections with because they're just so happy about what you do that, they can't rave enough about it. So you see this sometimes in the hospitality industry. When you go to a hotel, motel, or whatever, and you just kind of get bare bones service, and it's mediocre, and the person's sort of friendly but not really. You kind of feel like maybe they're glad you're there, but you're not sure. And even if it's a nice motel or a nice hotel, it just seems sort of flat. It seems sort of mediocre. And the likelihood of you returning again is not very high. If you've ever had really kind of a five-star experience, it's not uncommon that they know your name, they greet you by name, they actually know a lot about your preferences, what you like and what you prefer, and they're recommending things that they already know that you like and prefer. And there's just a kind of a roll out the red carpet sort of mentality where you feel kind of special as a consumer. That's what you want your customers to feel like. You want them to feel like, you know what, this is a guy who's knocking himself out to help me in my company. He's going way beyond what he promised to do. And the service has been so exceptional and the results have been so phenomenal that I can't wait to do business with him again. And frankly, I'm excited about being able to recommend him to my friends because I know that he will take care of my friends. So just knowing about customer satisfaction is critical. And if that's not something you've been measuring, you've been evaluating, you're really missing out. You're missing out on a lot of good information that can help you improve and even get more customers and retain the ones that you have. You're missing out on opportunities to be able to grow and expand your base. And frankly, you're just missing out on really part of the fulfillment and the joy of being able to serve your clients at a very high basis. So I strongly encourage you, if you've never done an NPS, a Net Promoter Score, look it up online, figure out how to do it, and then reach out to your customers, present and past customers, and actually get a score that will tell you whether they're happy and fulfilled and whether or not they plan on recommending you to others. If you do that, it will really help you improve your business, and it will really help you position your business so that when the time comes, you can share with a potential buyer your customer satisfaction level, and it will cause them to be more interested in actually purchasing your business. So NPS, Net Promoter Score, look it up. If you've not done one before, execute it in your company, and you'll find there will be a lot of benefit to it. If you need a little help with that, I'm Dr. Dave Pennington from Penn Coaching Consulting. I'd be glad to help you with it. And that's just one metric that I work with to help you position yourself strongly, high value, and attractiveness to buyers. There are many others that I can share with you as well. If you have interest, reach out to me, Dave@penncoaching.com, and I'd be glad to help you in any way I can.